It's Call of Duty Ghosts, and this is probably the worst Call of Duty I've played. More than 2 days of. Probably. I mean, the multiplayer is boring. It's probably even worse than Modern Warfare 3. The maps are worse, and they look bad as well, like graphically for its time as well. The campaign is decent, to be fair. Again, probably still one of the less impressive campaigns that I've played in Call of Duty. Extinction mode is okay, but again, even the DLC for Extinction mode is nothing compared to the Spec Ops Survival or Zombies. So it was just bad, basically. There's not really much more I can say about COD Ghosts other than it was disappointing, and it's a Call of Duty that I'd recommend missing, to be honest.
Released in 2014, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare was the first of the franchise to bring in the advanced movement systems such as double jumping, exosuits, and various futuristic abilities that were brought into the franchise. Now, after the mixed reception of Call of Duty Ghosts, the attitude towards Advanced Warfare carried on that reception, with a lot of people not wanting to embrace the futuristic aspects that this installment brought to the franchise, and some people loving the idea, fans of Halo and various other futuristic shooters, that embrace the idea of Call of Duty heading into the future with new technologies. Me personally, I think this game is a bit underrated, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I played it a ton when it came out, the year of 2014 and into 2015, and honestly, I really don't think it's too bad, and I certainly think it's one of the most underappreciated in the series. The story feels really cinematic, and the graphics look pretty much incredible still to even this day. And considering the game is now 6 years old, they brought in some genuine voice acting talent and real life actors, such as Kevin Spacey. Obviously, will bring a bit of controversy later on in his career, but needless to say, he does a good job in the game. The multiplayer I found insanely frantic and fast-paced, which I really enjoy about the series, and the double jumping added a new kind of level of gameplay to it. You could jump up and jump over enemies and jump around, which some people didn't like, but I found more intense and more of a challenge. And the Exo Zombies also really wasn't that bad. I thought it was a decent addition, and certainly better than Extinction that was brought into Ghosts. So in my opinion, I think Advanced Warfare is underrated. Certainly worth checking out if you haven't given it a play yet, as it still holds up to this day. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 was the third installment in the very popular Black Ops series of the franchise, and it once again brought a futuristic aspect that some people were still divided on, even after Advanced Warfare did do well, but people were obviously still a bit hit and miss whether they wanted the futuristic aspect in the franchise or not. Black Ops 3 did very well. Honestly though, the story is a complete waste of time in my opinion. I think it's just utterly forgettable and boring, and I couldn't wait to play through it as quick as possible just to get it done. However, the multiplayer I got hooked on for a long time, with the different specialist characters that they brought in, each having their own distinct special weapons and abilities, which I thought was very cool. And the multiplayer maps were just varied and unique, once again bringing in the different verticality aspect that we saw in Advanced Warfare. However, the zombies for me was a very hit or miss situation. Honestly, the original maps that they made for it, I wasn't a big fan of, aside from a visual perspective. However, when they remastered the Black Ops 1 and World War and Black Ops 2 maps, I was fully on board again and played so many hours of those remasters. Black Ops 3 is a solid game. I don't think it's as good as some people say, but it's definitely not bad at all. It's definitely... I put a ton of hours into it, despite saying, apart from the story, which I just found utterly boring. But it's a great entertaining game, and certainly better than Black Ops 4, which I'll get to. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was probably the franchise's lowest point from a commercial and a fan reception perspective. Infamously, the trailer is one of the most disliked on YouTube, with like 3 million dislikes. And also it had the competition of Battlefield 1, which was returning to a franchise roots, whereas Call of Duty was still spearheading the futuristic aspect that people were just tired of now. Honestly, the story isn't too bad. I think it's perfectly fine. It has some good moments. Visually, it looks great, and the space aspects are pretty cool. Aside from that, though, the multiplayer was broken at launch and continued just to be broken throughout. I found it just really boring and generic. Every time I'd attempt to kind of get into the game, I could never just get invested in it whatsoever, and the story and the zombies were just utterly pointless and forgettable. It lacked the ferocity and kind of fast-paced of the original zombies formula, and just wasn't as fun as the double-jumping exo-zombies that Advanced Warfare brought in. Only reason most people bought the special edition of the game was to get the Modern Warfare remastered with it, and I mean, Infinite Warfare has just pretty much been forgotten now.
Welcome to the bloody first. You're a long way from Texas, farm boy.
COD World War 2. Now, Call of Duty World War 2 was released in 2017 by Sledgehammer Games. It was their second game that they released. It was pretty good, I thought. I think it was nice to have it back to the old style of game where it was boots on the ground and no more futuristic movements and stuff like that. I just thought that was just nonsense. But, you know, at least they were trying to be innovative, I suppose. But it wasn't Call of Duty, really, in my opinion. And bringing it back to that was good. The campaign is actually pretty solid, I think, for World War II. Definitely one of the top 5, actually, that I've played, I think. Definitely top 5. The zombies were poor, though, to be honest. They weren't very fun. It was okay. It's better than the Extinction mode, but for zombies, it was probably the worst zombies experience I've played. And then the multiplayer, some of the maps are really bad, some of them are okay. Overall, the experience is decent. Wouldn't say fun, but decent, you know. And certain playlists and certain things have been brought in, updates to make the game more fun. And to be honest, they've been mostly done very well.
Welcome to the party.
Call of Duty Black Ops 4, like Infinite Warfare, around this time I was kind of losing my interest quite a bit in the franchise, if I'm honest with you. And Black Ops 4, again, the multiplayer, I like the specialist inclusions. Aside from that, considering it didn't have a story, which already I lost interest in quite a bit because I'm one of the few people that actually play the Call of Duty campaigns. When its story was just a glorified tutorial, I just was like, this isn't really worth it. Again, multiplayer was fine, just exactly what you'd expect at this point from the franchise. The Battle Royale mode was fun for a while. I'm personally not a big fan of the genre, so again, it didn't last too long for me, my interest. But visually, visually the game looks amazing, as this franchise does. The gunplay was solid as expected. And it offered a ton of content for people that were invested in the game. Personally, I wasn't.
We get dirty, and the world stays clean. That's the mission.
And lastly, we come to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. A reimagining reboot of the Modern Warfare series and a return to what people loved about the franchise and was arguably the peak of its time. The campaign, I think, is excellent. I unfortunately think it's a bit too short considering how good it is. I just wanted it to be longer, returning to a visceral and gritty perspective of a modern day warfare, as the title says. The multiplayer is excellent, a return to basic boots on the ground combat, which I really enjoy. And they've now brought in the Warzone mode, which again, because it's a Battle Royale mode, I'm not too fussed about. I played it a bit and I thought it was fine, but obviously that has now gone on to become one of the most successful aspects of the franchise. And they're making, I was reading some statistics earlier, how insane the amount of money that Warzone mode is making for the franchise at the moment. But yeah, the story is excellent in my opinion. I thought it was very good, very gritty and mature themed. Multiplayer is very solid, and it was definitely a return to form, in my opinion, for the franchise.